The kids knew something the adults didn't. While parents called him the crazy homeless man, the children saw him as their protector. When the gunman came for their school, only he was ready. The kids knew something the adults didn't. While parents called him the crazy homeless man, the children saw him as their protector. When the gunman came for their school, only he was ready. Welcome to Still Human, where we share stories that reveal the heroes hiding in plain sight. Before we dive into this incredible true story of misjudgment and ultimate redemption, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Whether you're at home, at work, or anywhere in between, we're grateful you're here to witness this powerful reminder that protectors don't always look the way we expect. The morning frost still clung to the chain-link fence surrounding Lincoln Elementary when Marcus Thompson first appeared at the corner of Maple and 3rd Street. It was October 15th, a Tuesday that started like any other in the quiet suburb of Millbrook. Coffee brewing in kitchen windows, yellow buses rumbling down tree-lined streets, and children's laughter echoing across playground asphalt. But this Tuesday would be different. This was the day the neighborhood noticed him. Marcus sat with his back against the old oak tree that had shaded that corner for 40 years, longer than most of the houses in the development had even existed. His possessions were few: a faded military surplus backpack, a sleeping bag that had seen better days, and a cardboard sign that simply read, "Homeless Veteran, God Bless." What the sign didn't say, what Marcus never talked about, was that he was a decorated Army Ranger with 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 Purple Hearts, and training that had kept him alive in the world's most dangerous places. To the parents of Lincoln Elementary, he was just another problem. "There's a homeless man camped outside our children's school," Karen Mitchell announced at the emergency PTA meeting 3 days later. Her voice carried the particular authority of someone who had never been denied anything she'd demanded. "My daughter Emma is afraid to walk to the bus stop." Now back to Lincoln Elementary, where everything was about to change. But first, let me tell you about 6 months of fear, prejudice, and a community's biggest mistake. The room buzzed with concerned murmurs. 37 parents had shown up on short notice, all united by the same protective instinct that had built the suburbs in the first place. The desire to shield their children from anything that looked different, felt uncertain, or challenged their carefully constructed sense of security. "I've called the police twice," added Robert Chen, whose son Danny was in 3rd grade. "They say he's not breaking any laws by sitting on public property, but this is about our children's safety." What none of them knew was that Marcus had chosen that corner with the precision of a man trained in defensive positioning. From that single spot, he could see 3 of the school's 4 entrances, monitor vehicle traffic from 2 directions, and maintain clear sightlines to the playground, where children spent their most vulnerable outdoor time. If they had asked, if anyone had bothered to ask, Marcus could have explained that his location wasn't random. It was strategic.
But they didn't ask. They complained.
By the end of October, the complaints had become a coordinated campaign. A Facebook group called Concerned Parents of Lincoln Elementary had attracted 127 members. Karen Mitchell had started a petition with the headline, "Remove Dangerous Vagrant from School Grounds." The local police had received 43 calls in 2 weeks. Principal Janet Morrison found herself caught in the middle, a 25-year veteran of public education. She'd seen every kind of community crisis that could affect a school, but she'd also seen something the parents hadn't noticed, or had chosen to ignore. "The children aren't afraid of him," she told her assistant principal during their weekly meeting. "If anything, they seem curious. Some of them wave when they pass by. Yesterday, I saw a little girl leave an apple on the fence post near where he sits." That little girl was Emma Mitchell. The same Emma whose mother was leading the charge to have Marcus removed. 8 years old, blonde pigtails, and possessed of the kind of intuitive wisdom that adults often lose somewhere between childhood and their first mortgage payment. Emma had been watching Marcus for weeks, not with the fearful suspicion her parents had taught her to feel towards strangers, but with the natural curiosity of a child who sensed something important beneath the surface. She noticed how he sat perfectly still during school arrival time, his eyes constantly moving, watching. She saw how he kept a small notebook and occasionally wrote in it. Most importantly, she noticed that he never looked at the children the way strangers usually did, with that particular adult interest that made kids uncomfortable. Instead, he looked past them, around them, as if he was watching for something else entirely. "Mom, why don't we like the nice man?" Emma had asked one evening in November. "He's not nice, sweetheart," Karen replied without looking up from her laptop, where she was composing another email to the city council. "He's dangerous. That's why Mommy is working to keep you safe." But Emma's 8-year-old logic was simpler, and as it turned out, more accurate. The man had never done anything to frighten her. He didn't call out to children, didn't approach the fence, didn't do any of the things her parents had taught her to fear from strangers. He just sat quietly. By December, the pressure campaign had intensified. The petition now had 284 signatures. The concerned parents group had grown to include families from 3 neighboring schools. Local news had picked up the story, framing it as a debate between community safety and homeless rights. Marcus knew about the meetings, the petitions, the phone calls. He could have moved on, found another corner, another town. His PTSD disability check was enough to rent a small apartment if he chose. But leaving would mean abandoning the watch he'd kept for 3 months, a watch the community didn't want but desperately needed. Because Marcus had seen things they hadn't. He'd noticed the white sedan that had driven past the school 7 times in 2 days, always slowing near the main entrance. He'd observed the young man who'd walked the perimeter fence twice, photographing the building from different angles. Most importantly, he'd recognized the signs that his military training had taught him to identify, the behavioral patterns that preceded an attack. In Afghanistan, Marcus had learned that the most dangerous enemies were often the ones who looked harmless, who spent weeks studying their targets, who planned their attacks with patience and precision. The homeless veteran everyone feared was actually the only person watching for the real threat. On January 18th, the city council caved to public pressure. Marcus Thompson would be prohibited from remaining within 500 feet of any school property. The order would take effect in 48 hours. Karen Mitchell celebrated with champagne that night. "We did it," she posted on Facebook. "Our children are finally safe." She was wrong. January 20th dawned cold and gray, with the kind of bitter wind that made even the bravest children hurry from car to classroom. Marcus had packed his few belongings and moved to a bus stop 6 blocks away, technically outside the 500-foot restriction, but too far to maintain his protective watch over Lincoln Elementary. For the first time in 3 months, the corner of Maple and 3rd Street was empty. At 10:47 a.m., 19-year-old Dylan Kovac parked his white sedan in the visitors' parking lot of Lincoln Elementary. He'd been planning this day for 8 weeks, ever since the online forums had convinced him that his problems were everyone else's fault, that his failures were society's responsibility, and that the best way to make people pay attention was to make them suffer. Dylan had studied the school's layout obsessively. He knew the class schedules, the emergency procedures, the response times of local police. What he didn't know was that for 3 months, a trained Army Ranger had been studying him back. Marcus saw the white sedan from 6 blocks away. His military-trained eyes recognized both the vehicle and the behavioral pattern immediately. From his new position at the bus stop, he couldn't see the school grounds, but he knew what was happening. His fingers found his cell phone. 911, what's your emergency? This is Marcus Thompson. Army Ranger retired. Lincoln Elementary School is about to be attacked by an active shooter. White sedan, license plate. He rattled off the information with military precision. The attacker is a young white male, approximately 19 years old, carrying what appears to be a tactical bag. Sir, how do you know this? Because I've been watching him case the building for 2 months. And because I know what these things look like before they happen. The 911 operator began the emergency protocol, but Marcus was already running. 6 blocks. 3 minutes if he pushed hard. The children had that long before their world changed forever. Inside Lincoln Elementary, Dylan Kovic walked through the main entrance with the confidence of someone who had planned every step. His tactical bag contained enough ammunition to turn a normal Tuesday into a national tragedy. He'd studied the Columbine shooters, the Sandy Hook killer, the Parkland gunman. He thought he knew everything there was to know about attacking a school. He was about to learn he was wrong. The first shots rang out at 10:52 a.m., just as second-grade teacher Mrs. Rodriguez was helping Emma Mitchell with a math problem. The lockdown alarm began immediately. A piercing sound that every American child now knows, as well as they know the Pledge of Allegiance. Emma remembered what her mom had taught her about stranger danger, about hiding from bad people. But as she crouched under her desk in the dark classroom, she found herself thinking about the quiet man from the corner, the one her mother had called dangerous. Emma had never felt danger from him. She had felt protected. Marcus reached the school grounds as police sirens wailed in the distance. The 500-foot restriction that had removed him from his protective position meant nothing now. Children were in danger, and that was the only law that mattered to a man who had spent 20 years putting himself between innocents and those who meant them harm. He didn't enter through the main door where Dylan had planned his attack. Instead, Marcus used knowledge gained from 3 months of observation to approach through the maintenance entrance he'd watched custodial staff use every morning. His military training took over. Move fast, stay low, use cover, eliminate the threat. Dylan had expected locked doors, hiding teachers, and terrified children. He had not expected to encounter a man who moved with lethal efficiency through the hallways, who understood tactical positioning, who had survived 3 combat tours, and knew exactly how to stop someone like him. The confrontation lasted less than 90 seconds. When it was over, Dylan Kovac was unconscious and disarmed, zip-tied with the same restraints Marcus had used on insurgents in Kandahar. 0 children had been harmed. 0 teachers had been shot. The only casualty was a young man's delusion that he could bring terror to a place protected by someone who understood what real protection meant. Police arrived to find Marcus sitting calmly beside the subdued attacker, his hands visible and empty, waiting to be arrested or thanked. He honestly wasn't sure which would happen first. "Who are you?" asked Officer Sarah Martinez, the first responder on scene. "Marcus Thompson, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, United States Army, retired. I've been watching this place for 3 months, trying to keep those kids safe." It took 6 hours for the full story to emerge. The investigating officers learned about the petition, the complaints, the 500-foot restriction. They learned that Marcus had identified the threat weeks before anyone else had seen it coming. Most importantly, they learned that the dangerous vagrant the community had worked so hard to remove was the only reason their children were alive. Karen Mitchell arrived at the school as the last police cars were pulling away. She found Marcus sitting on the front steps, giving his final statement to detectives. For 3 months, she had seen him as a threat to her daughter's safety. Now she understood that he had been the only thing standing between Emma and an unthinkable tragedy. "You saved her," Karen said quietly, sitting down beside the man she had tried so hard to destroy. You saved my baby." Marcus looked at her with the same calm dignity he had shown throughout 3 months of harassment and complaint. "Ma'am, I never stopped protecting these children, not even when you made me move away. That's what we do. We, soldiers, rangers, people who understand that some things are worth protecting, even when the people you're protecting don't want you there." The tears came then, tears of gratitude, shame, and recognition. Karen Mitchell had spent 3 months trying to remove the only person who had been keeping her daughter safe. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry we didn't see." "You saw what you expected to see," Marcus replied. "Most people do. But your daughter Emma, she waved at me every morning." Kids see things differently. They don't judge based on what someone looks like. They judge based on what someone feels like. The next morning, the corner of Maple and 3rd Street had a new occupant. Emma Mitchell had convinced her mother to drive her to school early, and she had brought something with her, a hand-drawn card with a picture of a soldier and the words, "Thank you for keeping us safe," written in careful 8-year-old cursive. She left it on the fence post where Marcus used to sit. The city council meeting the following week was packed beyond capacity. The same parents who had signed petitions demanding Marcus's removal now stood in line to apologize. The 500-foot restriction was rescinded unanimously. More importantly, the community voted to fund a small apartment for Marcus, along with a part-time position as a security consultant for the school district. Marcus accepted the apartment, but declined the job. "I'm not looking for work," he explained. "I'm just looking to serve. There's a difference." He returned to his corner at Maple and 3rd Street, but now parents stopped to thank him instead of calling police. Children no longer just waved. They brought him drawings, asked him questions about the army, invited him to school events. Marcus had gone from being the neighborhood's biggest fear to its most respected guardian. 6 months later, Dylan Kovac pleaded guilty to attempted mass murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. During the sentencing hearing, the judge read a letter from Emma Mitchell's 2nd grade class. "Dear Mr. Thompson, thank you for watching over us when no one else was watching. Thank you for being our guardian angel even when people were mean to you. We learned that heroes don't always look like superheroes. Sometimes they look like regular people who do brave things. We promise to look for the good in people, even when they look different from us. Love, Room 12. Marcus framed that letter and hung it in his small apartment, right next to his Purple Heart and his Ranger insignia. But every morning, he still walked to the corner of Maple and 3rd Street. He still sat beneath the old oak tree. He still watched over Lincoln Elementary with the patience and dedication of a man who understood that protection was not a job you could clock out of. The children still waved, the parents still thanked him, and Emma Mitchell, now in 3rd grade, still left him drawings and homemade cookies on the fence post. But most importantly, Lincoln Elementary School never experienced another day of terror, because sometimes the person you fear most is the person who's willing to die to keep you safe. The community learned that day that danger doesn't always look dangerous, and safety doesn't always look safe. They learned that a man's worth isn't measured by his address or his appearance, but by his willingness to stand between innocents and those who would harm them. They learned that heroes don't always wear uniforms, carry badges, or announce their presence. Sometimes they sit quietly in the shadows, watching, waiting, and hoping they'll never be needed. But when they are needed, they're ready, because that's what protectors do. They protect, even when, especially when, the people they're protecting don't want them there. Marcus Thompson never asked for recognition, never demanded thanks, never sought reward for his service. He simply showed up every day and did what Rangers do. He stood watch. He kept the peace. He protected those who couldn't protect themselves. In a world that had taught him to expect rejection, suspicion, and fear, Marcus had found something rare: a community that learned to see past their prejudices and recognize the guardian who had been hiding in plain sight. The kids had known all along. Adults just needed a crisis to help them see what children had recognized from the beginning. That the quiet man on the corner wasn't the danger they needed to fear. He was the protection they needed to embrace. This story reminds us that heroes don't always look heroic. Sometimes they look homeless, different, or threatening. Protection comes in unexpected forms. The person you judge might be the one who saves you. Communities can learn and grow. Prejudice can transform into gratitude. Children see truth, adults miss. Innocence recognizes authenticity. Vigilance is the price of safety. Someone is always watching, even when you don't know it. This story moved you? Here's how you can help. Share your experience. Have you ever misjudged someone who turned out to be a protector? Tell us about it in the comments. Connect with our community. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city and country. Let's see how far this message of looking beyond appearances travels. Spread the word. If this story changed how you see homeless veterans, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Join the Still Human family. Subscribe for more incredible true stories of hidden heroes, unexpected guardians, and the power of second chances. Support our veterans. If you know a homeless veteran, remember that they might be protecting more than you realize. Sometimes a conversation, a meal, or simple respect can make all the difference. More Guardian stories. Check out our Hidden Heroes playlist for similar stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Remember, the next time you see someone who looks different, acts different, or makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself, what if they're not the danger you need to fear? What if they're the protection you don't know you need? What will you choose the next time you encounter someone society has taught you to avoid? Thank you for being part of the Still Human family. Every view, like, and share helps us spread stories that matter. Stories that remind us to look deeper, judge less, and recognize the heroes hiding in plain sight. The kids knew something the adults didn't. Now you know too.